All right, welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and it is Monday. It's the first Monday, Schlegs, I believe, first Monday in February. And
It
normally
is.
we'd have National Signing Day on Wednesday, so we'd have like a big show to talk about that. But like the last couple of years since they have moved all this around, we don't have National Signing Day. They still have it, but everybody is more or less signed. Only a handful of guys wait till that final deadline, I guess, when that reopens again on Wednesday, which is traditionally when we signed our letters of intent and decided to go to college and all that stuff. So, all that was there for us at that point. But it's a much different paradigm that they're living in now, Schlegs. So they don't have that, but it's kind of good because if you look at Ryan Day and where they're at with this team, they are down and off the defensive coordinator, which happened first. Then you saw Justin Fry, the offensive line coach, take the Arizona Cardinals job, which honestly, I thought a lot of Buckeye fans would be happy about if you went back and read the tweets in the middle of the season, how he can't recruit and can't develop and everything else. And now he had multiple NFL jobs and was able to bid them against each other and everything. So, yeah, it's an interesting situation there. But he's going to be joining the Arizona Cardinals and reuniting with Paris Johnson out there. So you got that going. And then the news came down yesterday that Chip Kelly is going to be joining the
Raiders.
I was going to call them the Las Vegas Raiders. And they're going to be paying. We'll get into all this and the details of all that. So there's a lot of coaching. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say turmoil, but just unsettled pieces for Ryan Day and for a coach that's still, it's Ryan's a young coach. I mean, he's under 50 years old. He's 45 years old. He's got a lot of spots to fill. And a lot of things to do it. Coming off a national championship, when you win, people want to come get your guys. And so as you see that, that's what obviously happened this year. And there was a lot of dollars that were paid out, and we'll get into the details of all of that here as we go along. But Ari Wasserman is going to be joining us on 3. He'll join us in the second and maybe the third segment. Schlegs break some of that down and kind of where he thinks the importance of the coaches and everything else. But as you kind of heard all this, saw it all transpire, I mean, what were your initial thoughts with all of it?
Woo! That's what my initial thoughts were. But you know what, though? I keep going back to Caleb's down comment. Like, the dudes in the building are good.
Hold up. Did you call him Caleb's down?
No, I said Caleb Downs.
I think we said Caleb's down, but either way, I'm gonna let it slide.
He's not down. He's up. He's up. Yeah, better let that slide. But Caleb Downs, just articulated, dudes in the building are good. Coaching staff is good. Everybody believes in each other. Every year, you're going to have to fill in the gaps. You just lost a boatload of seniors. Who's going to be the next people to step up? You lost 3 really good coaches. Who's going to be the next person to step up? What does that look like? And so I think, honestly, as a coach and where you are in it and the brand that you are, I think that Ryan Day is actually in a good position because he knows, most importantly, what he needs on a staff for him to be successful as a head football coach. And I can't understate that value. Anybody that's ran any type of business has been grinding at it for years. All of a sudden, you break through and you reevaluate self-introspect. What is it that made that year uniquely different? Obviously, the players that we had, how old those players were, how developed they were, all being at Ohio State. So that's a core nucleus of the players. But from a staff perspective, the trust that is necessary to be able to go and do what he needs to be able to do as a head football coach in 2025, what does that look like? That's the most important question. Because as he goes through, like we all know this, I struggle with the human element all the time. So how do you eliminate the human element? You just quality over quantity, right? And make sure that everybody's in alignment. Everybody understands the standard. Everybody understands the expectations. And then therefore you'll be held accountable to those. And it's all very black and white, very transparent. So what were those things from this year that allowed Ryan Day to be a successful head coach? Those are the things that you're like, I cannot go back on that and say, you know what, if this guy doesn't fit that, I could bridge that gap. You can't. There's only a finite amount of bandwidth that you have mentally, physically, and emotionally to be able to do all the things that are required of you. So it's like understanding that first. That's going to open up your lens as to what do you need from an offensive coordinator, from an offensive line coach, and from now a defensive coordinator perspective. And then how does that filter into the assistant coaches that can help them to be able to go do that? Those are all the things that are being vetted currently. But the good thing is he actually has time to do so. And whether or not we go poach from other people, whether or not we hire from within, I think those are the questions that he has to ask himself before you get down those different rabbit holes.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because this year Ryan took that step back and became the CEO head coach and wasn't involved in, wasn't calling the plays. Chip did that. And so like the balance of how you're going to go there. So and we'll get into all of this with Ari Wasserman, but let's start on the offensive coordinator slides. Got Brian Hartline on staff, and Brian was a co-coordinator. He called some plays, was more involved a couple of years ago. And then this year, I think it was a great probably learning opportunity for Brian. You're around Chip Kelly, who's done this at a high level for a long time. And so you get to sit back and kind of watch and observe and kind of see that and see how good Chip is in the run game, because he is tremendous. And I think that was the big step up this year and kind of be a part of that. And so I think any decision could be made, with Brian Hartline as potentially, the offensive coordinator in this scenario. But then if you're bringing an O-line coach, like what does that look like? Well, what characteristics, Schlegs, as you see this and you look at this, like Chip was the quarterback's coach, and there's a lot of internal dynamics. And I think there might be some promotion from within, but you're going to need somebody that's involved with the offensive line and run game. And whether that's a coordinator, a co-coordinator, a pure O-line coach, whatever that looks like, you're going to need that guy. Because you lost Chip Kelly and you lost your O-line coach, and both those guys were heavy involved in that. What characteristics are you looking for, or do you think Ryan is looking for that position?
Well, there's a couple of things that I've been thinking about. Some of the best recruiting that's been going on in Ohio State have all been Buckeyes. And so I immediately go to, would a Charles Bentley want to be an offensive line coach at Ohio State? That's the number one question that you ask. And I talked about this on the Morning Juice, Bob, with you. It might have been a week ago or whatever. I don't remember. But the number one thing when you look at a staff, you want to be able to collaborate. This is how I look at all businesses. You want to be able to collaborate. You want other people that can see things through a different lens. However, at the end of the day, whether you're the offense coordinator or head football coach, underneath you, you also need soldiers, right? Regardless of what you think is needed, if the flag is planted from the guy and everybody comes together and we say, this is how we're moving on, though you might could it be a perfect? No, execute violently with the plan, be a great soldier, right? Because then again, then you can be the leader once you are an OC or you are your own head coach. But in the building, go be a soldier and do what you got to do. And I think that's the mindset when you go hire the supporting staff, the assistants to a coordinator and to the head coach. So, but in terms of recruiting and development, like could a LaCharles back now in Cleveland working with his son and does a lot of great things in his own professional development of other guys and very highly respected, is that something that he would entertain? That's one. Two, Kevin Wilson out there. Was an OC here in the past. Is he an offensive line guy?
Plus
or could he be that
father of, he's the father of
Nacho Libre, Toby, right? So, yeah. I mean, again, you automatically respect him because Nacho Libre is his son, and I love Toby Wilson. But, is that something that you bring back to the fold, having left again, been a head football coach in this day and age? So, I don't know. Where does Brian fit in this and his time to be able to call plays, and how does that impede him on the other side of what he's so good at, right? Like the receiving core, the development of the receivers, and the recruiting aspect. I'm just telling you guys, my biggest thing in terms of development, and you've heard me say this, Bob, right? If you're replaceable, you're not promotable. And I think that everybody on the Ohio State staff right now is some of those that are not replaceable. Like you want them. You want them to go off and get better opportunities, but you want to have the guys on your staff that are irreplaceable. And then now it's your job to go find them because you've helped them progress in their career by winning at Ohio State. But here's the number one thing. What are people elite at? And make sure that they stay elite in those areas and get the rest of the crap out of the way. And who does that go to? So unless there's somebody else there that can help in the development side of the wide receivers or something that he's been elite at all the time, like, then does that allow him to go be the offensive coordinator that he needs to be? Right? So like, that's what I look at. I look at, are the other supporting pieces there, or does he know somebody else that could be a supporting piece for him to help with that room while he also does it? Because I think as a coordinator, you have to roam. I think like when you're just stagnant and you're like focusing on your guys and also running the plan for your guys and coaching the crap out of those guys, I think that's why the defense got better this year with James actually being there and running the guys, because now Knowles could then be, the 15, 20,000 foot guy on what is required by the defense. However, you also need to have a voice and a sack to be able to say, hey, this is what we're freaking doing, why we're freaking doing, and we're going to go freaking do it. So all those things come into play, Bob.
There's a lot. The dynamics of it, like you said, of working together on the staff, of trying to figure all that out. How's that going to be married when someone picks up another task? Who picks up what they were doing? The relationship between them, the trust, and so there's a lot that you've got to dig into this. So this is going to be big for Ryan because it's not just a straight 1-for-1 trade. And then we'll have to get to the defensive side and how that ultimately plays in well. And there was a lot of rumors and things that, there was stuff that was maybe finished up yesterday, which was not. And, I was sitting there just getting hammered and inundated with these different texts about who could potentially be coming in as a D coordinator. So we'll get into all that. We got Ari Wasserman on 3 up next. He's going to do a great job for us. Excited to talk to him. Before we get to him, attention parents and athletes. Protect what matters most with Export mouth guards. Trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards feature 3 layers of advanced protection, including patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit, your own unique smile with that 3D printing. It's next level, folks. It means more protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication, so you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Don't take chances with your safety. Go to exportguards.com/Bobby. Save 15%. Export, protect what matters most. Ari Wasserman coming up next.
Welcome to Big Play, the fastest growing sports media company in America.
I'm gonna keep it straight with you. The reason you should watch our show is because I look good, baby.
Come get some!
Join our millions of fans for live sports talk shows hosted by the top former athletes and sports personalities in the industry.
Ohio, it's my home state.
Obviously, I'm a diehard Cleveland sports fan.
Watch what you want, where you want, when you want. Welcome to Big Play.
Make sure you tune in.
I love you, Cleveland.
All right, welcome back in to the Bobby Carpenter Show. Please like, subscribe, leave your questions, comments.
Jeff McLaughlin just got texted just for you guys, for you.
Who got texted for what?
Seth. They were like, hey, you got to get Seth on the show. I was you know what? I'm going to text him right now. Seth, run the damn ball. Get on the show at some point.
He's a good dude, Sykes. Good dude. Rehabbing today. We were talking a little bit. He said you for D coordinator in the office today, or in the training room. So, it's.
Who said that? Seth did?
Yeah, said higher Schlegs, Buckeyes. But we got Ari. We're gonna welcome our guy Ari Wasserman. He's been waiting for far too long. So
Ari, come on, man, get in here, baby.
What's up, boys? How are we doing?
Juiced up. What do we got on the hat there, Ari? That's looking pretty sweet. A little Super
This is
Bowl?
a 1993. I got into like this vintage sports hat phase last summer, and I bought a bunch of them. This is a 1993 Super Bowl hat, and I just thought it was appropriate to wear it today, considering we're going into Super Bowl week. But yeah, just complete randomness. And I know you're passed with the Dallas Cowboys, Bob. So I just thought I'd toss it on for you today.
There we go. I mean, it wasn't. Was that the one that was like 50 to 13, 17?
Yeah, it was the one at the Rose Bowl too. So I feel like this pays homage to the college football guy in me too. So it's and I wear it a lot in Dallas, and people always go crazy. They're like, "Did you get that in '93?" And it's like, "No, I was 5." But we're here and we're ready. So
you have it though. It's not like it's a remake. I mean, that hat is 30 years old. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So the love of those hats, Ari, did that replace your love of the vintage cars? Did we replace that?
No. That's still a ongoing argument in my household every day. So we're working on it. My hope is that by football season, I will have acquired it. I've test driven a few, and I'm getting there. So you know how it is, guys. You got to wear the wife down little by little. I don't know who has the power dynamic in your households, but it's certainly not me and mine. So we're working on
down. Just wear them down. Just wear them down.
Little by little.
Hey, can I go get this? No. Hey, can I do this? No. Hey, can I? I'm just like, listen. You're like, and then eventually you're like, no. I just keep saying no. I'm good at that. So I can battle with them. Let's talk Ohio State, Ari. Like we got a lot of stuff going down. You got D coordinator leaves. Poof, David Copperfield. You have offensive line coach that did a phenomenal job this year. Has developed dudes. I mean, Seth Windsor-Remington coming from Alabama. People don't talk about that enough. And all the things that they said about him leaving Alabama, coming here, winning a Remington, and then also the injuries and being able to go make this run in the college football playoff. And then Chip Kelly, your offensive coordinator, leaves to the Raiders for $6 million. Like, where does Ohio State need to go now? What do you think their path is?
It's really interesting, guys, because like I've been thinking a lot about this. And like I don't know if you remember the last time I was on this show, but I was pretty harsh, about how
I remember.
Yeah. Ohio State not being what I thought they were, and then holy am I allowed to curse on here? Holy shit, we saw it, right? Like, I mean, like, is that not exactly what I was talking about? That 4-game run there at the end of the year. And it was just really cool to see it actually, reach where everybody anticipated and thought it could reach. And they won a national championship. And that's something that, as you guys know, makes you a Buckeye for life and a legend. And, Ryan Day, I think, has enough built up equity now in his aura. Funny enough, 6 weeks, 2 months after being at an all-time low of being just a made man in Columbus. So congratulations to Ohio State for doing that. First of all, I didn't want to ignore, being harsh in the past without also giving flowers when they do what I said they weren't doing. Right. Like that's only fair. So this brings us to the intersection that we are in today when talking about Ohio State, of like, in this new era of college football, what are reasonable expectations for a program like Ohio State, right? Like, so you go to the mountaintop and you get to where you're going, but like now with the way that the sport is set up, what is reasonable about what to expect or want next? This isn't 2017 anymore. The rosters aren't as stacked in terms of depth as much as they once were. Like, is it okay if they just take a step back for a year and regroup? I don't know. Like, what is it like in Columbus? Is it okay if they go 10-2 next year and lose in the quarters? Like, I think that like part of college football now is you can't have first round draft picks sitting in the 2 deep anymore because people leave. And like Ohio State, I believe last year was the final super team that we're going to have in the sport. And secondly, when you win it all, people want your guys, right? Whether that be the NFL or whether that be your coaches. And all the losses that they've had, maybe outside of the one that Jim Knowles, weren't shocking, right? Like if you know anything about Chip Kelly, he likes coaching ball and being out of the spotlight. If the Raiders wanted to get him back to the NFL and pay him $6 million a year to be not the face of the team where he can just coach and live in one of the best cities in America and do like, is that like surprising to you? Like, it's not to me. The only one that was surprising to me was Knowles. And you probably have more insight than I do in terms of how and why that played out the way that it did. But like, yeah, I guess I just would respond with the question to you of like, does Ohio State have to be a top 3 team next year for people to not be on Ryan Day's ass? Or like, is it just like you win one, you get to regroup and you have to rebuild? Like, it's like the rebuild reload thing to me is interesting. Like, do you think that a team can win back-to-back national championships in this era? Like, it's a new era now, the last 2 years. It's certainly interesting to like, because like back in 2014 when I was on the beat and they won it, it was like, all right, whole team's coming back, 15, they better do it again, you know? And it's like they lost their entire team now. They've got the 2 best players in college football, and then everybody else left. So it's a weird place to be, I think. And I think maybe you guys would actually be more, you know, on the pulse of like what Ohio State fans actually feel is like the rational expectation. For me, I would be like, go figure out a way to beat Michigan next year, and everything else is gravy.
Yeah.
That's the way I would look at it.
No, and you're not wrong. All right. I think there is that element that, yeah, go figure out a way to beat Michigan. I don't know if like losing in the quarters, a lot of it's how the season feels. You know, college football is so emotional. And so when you're watching these games, like, do you feel like your team's competent, or do you feel like you're wasting guys' talent? I mean, you have JJ Smith, who might be the best offensive player, Caleb Downs, who might be the best defensive player. You've got a ton of these 5-star players that have been recruited. I'm going to get into that with you because I know that you love the recruiting and like comparing that of how, you know, what team should ultimately be. But I feel like as long as you don't feel like you're wasting guys, like, I don't know if you have to win it. And honestly, Ari, with a 12-team playoff and having to win 3 or 4 games, it's easier to get in, but it's so much harder, I think, to convert. And that's, I think Ohio State gets in. Maybe they win a game, maybe they win 2, but like to be able to go on a run like that, some of it's luck. Like, they were really healthy. Like, it's attrition, and they were able to figure some stuff out. But it's not. I think it's more of an NFL model where that's why you've never seen, you know, 3 in a row in the Super Bowl era, just because of the difficulty of that final gauntlet.
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting about Ohio State's run this past year. Like, I think that, you know, people got so bogged down, and rightfully so, about the Michigan game that they never stopped to appreciate how freaking hard it must have been to beat Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame all in a row. Like, in terms of like a path to a national championship, I'm not sure there's ever been a harder one. And, you know, that's partly because of the system, and that's partly because, you know, of the way that, you know, these games were situated. But like, that's the new reality. And it's like, whoever wins the national championship, you know, I in the future, I don't think is going to, like, we're going to find in 5 years that Ohio State's path, because they had the hardest path of anybody in the thing too, right? Like, they had to win the national championship at the beginning of the bracket. Ohio State's path was the hardest, and they did it. I don't think that the national champion in the future is going to be traveling that path very often. And part of it is because Ohio State was the 8th seed as a result of underperforming in the regular season. Like, if Ohio State was who they were supposed to be, or that team all year, then they would have had a better seed and they wouldn't have had to do that. So, yes, I'm with you on that. And like, also too, in 2014 and 15 and 19 and some of the other playoff teams, like Ohio State's too deep, could have won 5 games in the Big Ten, right? And like, I just don't know if that's the case anywhere anymore. Ohio State was lucky enough to get all those players to come back and then accentuate the roster with, you know, an addition like JJ Smith out of the high school ranks, and Caleb Downs and Will Howard and Quinshon Judkins. Like, I think you can get better with adding 4 or 5 guys in one offseason to a pretty good roster. I just don't know if we're ever going to see a team have that much talent on the same roster again. And if that's the case, then you combine that reality with the fact that you're going to lose coaches and players after you win a national championship, and you're probably going to have to face the hardest path to winning a title that there's ever been in this new system. It seems impossible to do it 2 years in a row. So, like, we don't know who Ohio State's starting quarterback is going to be next year. I think that, you know, you have to have all the confidence in the world in Ryan Day to schematically, you know, get this team where it needs to be after what we just watched. But like, Penn State's going to be really good next year. Michigan's going to be really good next year. The playoff, whatever it is, yeah, it's going to be difficult. Now, here's the other thing, not to ramble. But in like 2015, if Ohio State would have gone 10-2, that would have been a freaking disaster. Like 10-2 in the old days, and by the old days, I mean 10 years ago, 7 years ago, was an abject failure, right? Like 10-2 now is like you're going to the playoff.
Yeah.
You know, so like it's changed. Like the regular season has changed to the point where it's like, yeah, Ohio State's going to have a lot of really good players next year because they always do. They might take a step back because of like coaching replacements and getting on the right page or whatever, but they're going to have Caleb Downs and JJ Smith. Their quarterback is presumably going to be very good. Their receivers are all top 60 players nationally, which is an insane thing to think, like all 5 of them. Like they're going to have guys. So if they get to the playoff, they could get hot again at the end of the year and who knows, go on another run. But like in terms of like I don't know if this is how you guys feel or how your listeners feel, but like if I were an Ohio State fan, I don't know that I would be all that bummed out about all this stuff. Maybe the Knowles thing, you know, hurts a little bit because you think that, you know, you get to the mountaintop of the person and why would they go to a rival to do the same thing? Like I get that. But like this is the expectation that you should have. If you win a title, your players and your coaches are going to leave because people want them. And however the building process goes, there's going to be some pains with that. And that's okay. That's the trade-off for winning it all, in my opinion.
It is. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 1 minute. More of Ari Wasserman coming at you next. All right, back with more Ari Wasserman. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. Great at Ari Wasserman, does a great job with On3. And then he's able to put together some great content. So we appreciate you taking some time with us, Ari. Give us some big picture look, and you're uniquely qualified because you covered the beat here. You know, you're a Cleveland guy. You've been around this, and it's something that you've seen from both near and far. When we start looking at this and understanding like potential coordinators that are out there, is there anybody that you think like you could marry into this Ryan Day system that you feel like you would feel good about that maybe you've heard being thrown around?
Well, you know what I wanted to ask you guys, and I hate to keep doing this to you today.
Good. Ask away.
The thing that I think is interesting is, and we had a 25-minute debate about this on our podcast this morning, of like, how important is Brian Hartline and how much does he do from a receiver standpoint and a, you know, offensive standpoint to qualify you to call plays? And do you have to, in the effort to make sure you don't lose somebody that valuable, give them the promotion that they probably deserve? Like, isn't that just a natural next step? Like to me, like on the offensive side of the ball, I think the defensive side of the ball is probably a little bit more difficult because of how good Knowles was. But like, is Brian Hartline just like not the answer? And like, is he valuable enough to try to not upset? Like, here's the thing. Like, I've had 27 conversations with him in the last 3 years about his future and like where he wants to be and where he views himself. But like also too, you know, it's a job. And when you're at a job and you're doing good work, you want to be recognized and you want to be appreciated. And I feel like figuring out what to do with him is like step one, right?
I think so, Ari, and I think part of it is, you know, because he got the co-coordinator title a couple years ago, and you know Ryan was still calling a lot of the plays. But sometimes, like the experience of being with a veteran guy like Chip, I think helps out a lot, and understanding the run game. I do think whatever decision they make, you know, and if they promote Brian, what the good news is, they're assuming Devin Jordan stays, who Brian and Devin both played with Schlegs and I. We were at Ohio State. He helps manage that receiver room now, and so that could take some of the heat off of his plate there. But whoever they bring in, I think in the offensive line, is you want a guy with a strong run game background. and maybe someone who's been a coordinator or been a head coach. You're never going to find Chip Kelly again. But if you get someone that has some of those attributes, because any receiver, and even quarterback sometimes, like just their growth in the run game that you've got to figure out. And Chip was so good with that. And so to be able to have someone to marry with him to continue to grow that, I think that is a very real possibility, because you don't want to lose Brian. It's probably time for him to be able to have a chance. And you'd rather see him have that chance here than go take that somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm agree with Bob, because I know it was open to both of us, Ari.
Yeah.
So, but here's my thing though. What I don't want to happen is Ryan Day be the quarterback coach again. Like I don't want it. I don't want Ryan having to have a unit. That's my number one thing. Two, with Devin being there, and let's say you get somebody else that could be the quarterback coach, and then maybe somebody that has the offensive line background as like the run game coordinator, and that's how they do it. The bigger question is, one, does he, like I always say this first, Bob, you know this, do you want to call plays? Like, do you feel you're ready? And more importantly, does Ryan Day and what he believes an offense should be and what Ryan Day believes an offense should be, is it on the same page? Like, that's what I saw from this year. I saw somebody that just unequivocally trusted Chip. You know what I mean? And how Chip, even though they were injured up front, did different things when Seth and Josh left that helped Fry to be able to go do what he needed to do on the offensive line of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball. So it's like, where do you feel comfortable, and how do you set Brian up for success as a coordinator and give him that autonomy? Same thing goes on defense. When we talk about the guys that are there, one thing that we had growing, like while we were playing, Ari, is we went from D'Antonio to Mel Tuck and Snides to then Jim Haycock. But the defenses were all very, very similar. Same terminology. Like, it was very consistent. And so how do you do that? I think that plays a part in who they bring in. And it also plays a part in where are some of the weaknesses on your defense and how do you want to navigate those things moving forward in recruiting, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot at play that you got to go through. My number one thing is Ryan still needs to be the CEO football coach and not in the day-to-day of the individual positions. That's what has to come first and foremost, regardless of the price.
I agree with you. Well, you want to do as closely as the same thing as you did the year you won the national title, right? Like, you don't want to go back to doing what you were doing before. Obviously, what happened this past year is the formula. So, I do think that you guys are both onto something there, and the terminology and all that stuff. Like, you guys both played there and played D. You know better than me, but like, I would probably want to go get the person who has shown the best results in that position. And I don't know if, obviously you want to have similar scheme and similar terminology, and you want it to be as seamless as possible. But I've seen Ohio State promote from within. I've seen them hire people who didn't necessarily have the results in the past that led to some pretty dysfunctional defenses. So, as you guys know, better than anybody, like, the players who are on this team are smart, right? You play football at the highest level. You play at Ohio State, you are probably more malleable in terms of like what you're able to accomplish than, players at other places. And I think that new terminology and new schemes and different things might actually, not be as bad of a big of a deal as you might think. So, like, Caleb Downs is coming back next year. Like, is there any question that he'll be able to figure it out no matter who it is? Like, to me, no. But like, I also feel like Ohio State has made some weird promotions from within in the past that didn't work out. And I think that they have not always been like, we're Ohio State, we can go get the best possible candidate out there. And like, I think that that's the approach I would take. Like, I don't know who that would be, but like, I would go like pick up the phone and call some pretty, like, do exactly what Penn State just did. Like, why Penn State called Jim Knowles? I wouldn't even think they would even bother picking up the phone, and they ended up getting him. I'd call Glenn Schumann at Georgia. I'd call Phil Parker in Iowa. I would call guys I would call Jeff Hafley. I would call guys that have had proven eras of sustained success at places that have, won a lot. And I would do the same thing with the offensive coordinator position too. My only thing with Brian Hartline is that there has been nobody in college football who has recruited or developed the position better than he has.
Yeah, for
at
sure.
any position on the field. And I also think that if you're watching the entire sport on Saturday, the teams that have the best receivers are often the teams that are the best,
Yeah.
and I think that like having JJ Smith and Carnell Tate and all these guys is a huge part of their offense. So I would do everything I could to protect him as well. So it's very difficult. And the one thing that is for sure important for a coach isn't always what we get bogged down on, who's calling plays or it's like making the right hires are so essential. And if you go look at some of the places that Ohio State has come up short in the past under Ryan's leadership and under Jim Tressel's and even under Urban Meyer's, it's been like the wrong hire. So, you have to trust that he'll do it. And he's made some bad ones before, but he's also more seasoned and has a ring. So go out and get the best possible candidate for the position. And it doesn't matter where they work. Ohio State can get them. That's how I would do it.
All right. Final question for Ari, because you always love to lean on players. Is it, and you mentioned like you're not going to be able to stack these rosters with 2 deep NFL players anymore. It just doesn't happen. They go somewhere else. You really have starters and then your young guys, and there's really not a lot in between. Is it more important to get the roster right or the coaches right?
Roster.
I love it. Not even.
I mean, like what? Like,
I know. Listen, I'm not debating that. I'm not debating that.
Yeah. I mean, like, here's the thing, though. It's just like, what does the roster right even look like? I mean, how do you replace all that? Like, there isn't enough talent in the portal cumulatively to put together what they had last year. And like, to me, it's like I would make sure that whoever the quarterback is, that we're, feel pretty good about that. Cause, I know that people are assuming that it's going to be Julian Sand, but, they have some other options in that room, maybe some young options. But in terms of like the defensive line and some of the players that they've lost, like, I don't know that it'll be real easy to replace Jack Sawyer and JT and all those guys that they're losing. So, but yeah, I'm always going to take talent over coaching. The problem is that when you get a bunch of good players and the coaching isn't there, then you get to a place where Ohio State has been at times the last few years, which is why are these players not playing up to their potential, which is equally as maddening. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm always going to go for the freak defensive lineman who can't be blocked, because like there isn't a coach in the entire world that can beat that if you are even marginally good coach. And like I said, Ohio State's not going to get bad coaches, right?
Yeah.
If you get great players and okay coaches, or great coaches and okay players, like I would take the okay coaches.
Absolutely. You can't coach an average guy to be Myles Garrett.
Yeah, right. And how many times has Ohio State won games in the last 20 years and beyond because they had exceptional players at positions? Like Ohio State went undefeated in 2012 despite having what I thought was a pretty marginal team, obviously as a result of losing a bunch of guys and suspensions and stuff. But like Braxton Miller existed, and they just ran the ball all over the place because he could make somebody miss. Like that. Like it's like how many coaches, how many players in Ohio State history the last 15 years even fall under that category? I think you could say like the Bosa brothers, right? Like they've had that guy on the team basically every single year. In the years that they didn't have that guy on the team, or the years they weren't very good for their standard. So if you can get as many freaks on the team as possible, then let the okay coaches deal with the freaks. But we need the freaks.
I love it. Ari, we appreciate it. We took way too much of your time, sir. Thank you for spending some with us today. I enjoy speaking with you, man. You do a great job. And so, folks, make sure you go check out Ari Wasserman on X, at Ari Wasserman. Stuff on 3 does a great job. Thank you, sir.
Anytime you guys need me, I always enjoy coming on your show and love what you guys are doing. So enjoy the title. And it was really cool to be there for all 4 steps of the way, because it felt like I was a beat writer again.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride. Well, hopefully we'll have another one here soon as well. Thank you, Ari. That's Ari Wasserman doing a great job. Kind enough to join us. All right, coming up next, we got some headlines coming at you right here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
The Big Play Sports Network. Download the free app today to watch all of your favorite hosts on demand.
I'm Garage Beer, and this is Bobby Carpenter.
Garage Beer. Beer flavored beer.
Beef with an F? Okay, my bad. It's crisp and cool, and it doesn't taste like. I'm Bobby Carpenter. I drink in garages because my wife says I don't belong inside. If you like a cold breeze on your bag, drink garage beer. It's American, and so can you. Garage beer, beer-flavored beer. All right, welcome back in the Bobby Carpenter Show. We got some headlines for you here coming up. In the first one, Shakes, we've kind of alluded to it. We've talked about it. You lose Chip Kelly, your offensive coordinator. Yeah. Obviously, it's disappointing. But I told some folks, like, you see this, like, man, there's really no way to compete with it. He wanted to go to the NFL. He had the opportunity to do so. He had the opportunity to do so and get rewarded bigly by doing it as well, to the tune of $6 million. We can throw that up from J-Book. I mean, when I heard this, Schlegs, I was completely just blown away that he was going to be getting $6 million a year, making him the highest paid coordinator, like by a wide margin.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would make him, Schlegs, the 35th highest paid head coach in college football, like just below Sharon Moore of Michigan. So, like, think about that. Like, and he just gets to coach ball, be a coordinator, live in Vegas. He's a hour flight from his place out in Manhattan Beach or wherever it is out there. Like, and I get it. And he did a solid for his dude Ryan, and it all worked out.
Yeah, man. Yeah, somebody put on there that Mark Davis saves money on his haircuts and spends it on his coordinator. Probably overpaid. I think he would have probably gone for much less, but good for Chip. Good for this opportunity for him to go into the NFL. And the NFL is just different than in college football. And there was some good debate on there. I think we were talking with Ari about the rosters, and we're not going to see teams like this. I disagree, man. I think that you can, when you have the right culture, the right fit, and you bring in the right guys that believe in what it is that you're trying to do. I still think you can have it, because what this year showed is guys can stay, make that money, improve their draft stock. They can stay and remain the same, but also just made some money. They can stay and have one great season, as a Cody Simon did, and go into the league and now be draftable. So all variations have seen, whether you rise, whether you maintain, or whether you prove yourself, that ups your stock. Seth coming in at where he was to where he is now, I think they did a great job.
The thing, though, Schlegs, like Cody Simon arrived like right at the beginning of NIL, and these guys, like, it's tough to have dudes sitting behind and not playing when there's other schools that call and offer them twice as much money as you can afford to pay a backup, because you just can't allocate those resources to a guy who's not on the field. And so I get it. And you will have some guys that will stay, and it won't be crazy if you have a solid culture, but it'll be.
We also got the revenue sharing, Bob, that we don't even know anything about. Like, there's so many different things.
I understand that, but every other school in the Big Ten every school has the revenue share.
I know. So, we don't even know what's going down.
So they got to figure all that out and how that's going to work. It's like I said, there's another wrench in it now, and so they've got to try to figure this out and how that's going to operate.
Here's one for you. How good do you think Chip's going to be in the league?
I think Chip will be good in the league. I thought honestly, like, looking back at some of the things he did, they were revolutionary, but there's more. He kind of started the conversation on some of that stuff, and it is more, you've seen more of it happen. I think he was just a little too early. And as a head coach, he's trying to kind of upset everything, the apple cart all at once. And like, people like incremental could change. They don't want something that's just crazy. And when you don't win big, and he won, he wasn't bad in Philly, and then San Francisco was a little bit sideways, but when you don't win big, like, obviously there's going to be repercussions for that. What is also interesting is, so Ryan found out about Chip. We can throw up this stuff with he was on with Joel Klatt, Pat, and he was sitting there. There we go, with Joel Klatt, and he's literally doing a podcast with Joel. We can listen to this as he finds out about the Chip Kelly decision to leave.
It's just kind of breaking as we're recording this about Chip. So What did it mean for you, to have him with you to reach the mountaintop? Because you guys go way back, and everyone has talked about it. We talked about it for a long time. He was your coach. You guys have known each other all the way back, to when you were a youngster. What did it mean to you to do this with him?
That was great. It was great. And, we talked about it, the fact that, we had a really good group here, and, the dream would be to win a national championship. And then, he decides whether he wants to stay or have an opportunity to go to the NFL. And it's exactly what happened. And, just to be able to, have a beer in a few years, and talk about the year that we had together is going to be special, because we all started together, and this is where I started with him. And we went and did that. And what a great story. And I know so many people back home in New Hampshire are just excited for him and for the story. It's pretty special.
And it's pretty remarkable that happened. I'm sure Ryan had an idea. I mean, Chip was getting courted by a number of folks. So that was tremendous to kind of see that interaction and his response to that in real time. That's all the time we got for headlines. We're not going to have a whole lot of time for our tailgate talk, but we do have a couple ones in the chat that I want to get to and have some comments on. We'll get to those with our tailgate talk, brought to you by Real Truck, coming up next.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select Real Truck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right, welcome back into the show. Now we're doing our tailgate talk, brought to you by our friends at Real Truck. You go to realtruck.com. Bring your truck, Jeep, Bronco to life with all the accessories for the interior, the exterior, all the trimmings that you want. And it's going to be spring before you know it, folks. You want to have your vehicle out there looking sweet. So do like Schlegs and I did. Bring it to life. And when you go to Real Truck and you spend $100, you're going to get free shipping on everything. And so that's going to make it a lot easier, right to your door. You can slap that stuff on and be looking good and ready to go. I said, I've got both my bumpers on. I've got my winch. I just got to hook it up to the battery, and we'll be ready to rock here come springtime. So super excited for that. All right. Well, there are a couple of questions here that were coming out. One coming from Justin B. It said, heard a lot about Bates from Pittsburgh, that he might be coming in. Now, so because I did a little bit of research, Bates has been in Pittsburgh, I think a year or two, not very long, maybe 3. He was at Northwestern for a long time as a linebacker coach. He's a Cambridge guy, went to Ohio State. I first heard that like last night. It made it sound like it was a done deal. I had a friend of mine who knew him from high school, and it's like, say hi to him. And I don't know, stuff moves fast. But after doing a little research on it, I don't think, and maybe it could ultimately be him, but I think that they are leaning a little bit more to the Guerreri and Walton combo, just with continuity and just to listen to some of the things that Ryan has said with that.
So Bates was the DC at Northwestern with Fitz, right?
He's a linebacker coach, and then DC, and now he's a Pitt with Narduzzi.
Yeah, no. Sounds like a terrible idea.
Okay,
it doesn't do anything that you want it. Like you mentioned, Guerreri being this next best up and coming. You got a dude in Walt that just absolutely recruiting his balls off. You already got a phenomenal linebacker coach. I guarantee his side nugget knows way more shit than Bates does. I don't care where he did it. Like sometimes you just gotta let your dude get in the weeds for a couple of years, and James will be phenomenal. So I'm gonna pump the brakes on that. Whether they go, I don't know. But we also, that's stupid. I don't believe it for one bit. I think you're gonna press pause and evaluate. Go to the next one.
And then this one here is another one. Oh goodness, I just lost it. Well, because I was reading one from Mike Ferguson where Schlegs for DC, Bob for pump coordinator, and AJ for Glory Hole facilities manager, which I obviously like that. Oh, this is from Doug Shepard Sr. How much input did Locke have in the run game plan? Meaning Carlos Locke on the running backs coach. And without sitting in on those meetings, Schlegs, I know that Chip was very instrumental in the run game. Like that was his deal. He was really stinking good at it. And I'm sure Locke had some input. First year position coach coming into a new building. Like I'm positive that he had input of understanding what was going on, but it's not necessarily, it's the blocking schemes and the design of that. That's where Chip really thrived, and marrying that with the backfield action. So while I'm sure Carlos Loxton had plans. And a lot of times what they'll do is each people will take like, first and second down runs. People have a third down pass. Everybody kind of breaks it down, and each one on the staff does different special situations and situations to kind of present on and talk through it. So there was an involvement there, but Chip was just such a next level guy, and he always has been. That's just tough to replace that.
Yeah, I want to say this. I think, dadgummit, man. I just had his name. Who left and went to
Tony Alford?
No, who left and went to BC? O'Brien.
Right.
O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien. I just remember like when he first got there, right? Why it's good to see things through a different lens, and you bring in Chip. You got to remember, like as you go through year and year, it just starts accumulating different plays, different scenarios of a play, like different ways of getting to that play. And it just becomes this huge novel that really needs to be condensed and modified to where you can execute better and just have adjustments off of that. And I just remember that was one of the things that Bill was trying to do at the very beginning is like whittle that down to what is the core. I think that Chip was able to do that, and he did it in the running game, which is why I think he's going to the NFL, because the NFL is predicated upon being able to run the football. And so whoever you get in this next position, whether it's a coordinator that knows the run game really well with Brian being that passing guy, or an offensive line coach, like it doesn't matter, but it all starts up front and how you're able to do that with the play action. I think they're going to be really good because they got really talented guys. I searched some of you guys in the chat. It's all gas, no brakes when you have generational type talent in Caleb and JJ, but there's a lot of guys on there that have that kind of talent, and we got to use them. But I feel very confident that Ryan will get the right dudes on the bus to coach at the Ohio State University.
Then there's one other question, kind of comment coming in as well. Neil mentions Joe Cullen, who's the D-line coach for Kansas City, which I think he's in the mix, and I think that there's a potential for him to be coming in. I don't know what the role would look like. And here's the problem. They're still playing in the Super Bowl right now. So, if he's going to be involved, there will be no decision made as to him and what his involvement would be until after that game. So if there is some Joe Cullen conversation, it wouldn't be until next week as well. But that's all the time we've got today for our tailgate talk. Brought to you by our friends over at Real Truck. Coming up next, Shaggy's going to wrap up his show with his parting thoughts.
Get the most out of work, life, and all your outdoor adventures with top-selling upgrades for your truck. Guaranteed fit, free shipping, easy install, expert support, and thousands of dealers just a click away. Bring your truck to life. Real Truck. Upgrade today and save between $50 and $400 on select Real Truck products. Visit realtruck.com/specials.
All right, Schlegs, let's hear your parting thoughts.
Throw it up there. So, hey, one real fast parting thought is, guys, listen, there's no recruiting right now. It's dead period. It's okay to wait. Make sure you vet everybody. Make sure you find the people that has the right synergies that most importantly allow Ryan Day to be able to do what he does best and also can impact the players. But I'm going to throw a Belichick. Throw it up there. Listen, man, the guy's in his 70s. He dates a 26-year-old. Good for him. But he also knows, win the crowd, you win your freedom. They're doing a couple things. They're putting grass back in the stadium. He's asking them on the IG if they want to bring the hedges back. And then now he's delivering pizza to all the fraternities so they can beat Duke's ass. Good for you, Bill. Good for you.
That's phenomenal. You got to love Bill Schlegs. I didn't realize you were such an admirer of him and his 25-year-old girlfriend. So kudos to him. Kudos to you. Kudos
He's all about the IG now.
Absolutely. He's on the gram, Schlegs. He's a big proponent of it. Go Bucks. We'll see you tomorrow at 12:30.